It says going live. The meeting is being live streamed.
Check. Cool. Yeah, we're live.
So hello, everyone, and welcome to the Wish Alliance's meeting tonight. We have our Cosmic Conversations with Neil Gar. I'm your host, Sheila Seppi, and I'm the founder of the Wish Alliance. And Wish stands for walk-ins, indigos, starseeds, and hybrids. So if you're not already signed up to be on our mailing list, please do so at www.wishalliance.org. You can do it at several places, but the easiest place is just to go straight on to our homepage. And we also have a Facebook page, wishalliance.org. So please sign up and join us. Also I see our co-host, Phil Gruber, here tonight. Hey, Phil. Welcome, welcome. I didn't see you. So I want to thank Neil, because Neil is a giant in the field of conscious promotion, and he's worked hard to create programming so that the world can increase in their vibratory frequency. And what you've created through Portal to Ascension is nothing less than spectacular, Neil. So through Portal, everyone can log in and obtain lots and lots of different programming. There'll be something there for everyone. So please check out PortalToAscension.org. Also tonight, do we have Mariana with us? Mariana, I'd like to ask you if you would go ahead and just say a few words about the upcoming workshop that's going to happen, and then we're going to turn it over to Neil.
Thank you so much, Sheila. Thank you, Neil. Thank you, Phil. And an innumerable thank you to the Wish Alliance and to Portal to Ascension, and even to Alan Steinfeld from New Realities, as we have an absolutely incredible Morphogenesis and the Return of Our Divine Blueprint special webinar coming up actually on Sunday, January 23rd, 5 p.m. EDT, 3 p.m. Mountain Time, and 2 p.m. PST. And it's going to feature amazing explorations on the morphogenetic process that is going on our planet at this time. And this is going to be in collaboration with the Wish Alliance and New Realities, and hopefully Neil can join us as well. And we have amazing presenters. Alan Steinfeld is going to do a special presentation, Marina Saran, Geraldine Orozco, and my partner in crime, Phil Gruber. It's going to be an absolutely amazing special webinar. So please do come and join us. It will be really a very, very special night, and definitely our community and the community of the Federation of Light, all of us coming together on a very special evening. So thank you very much. Thank you, guys. And I'll turn it over to Neil now.
Thank you. Okay, Neil. Can't wait to hear your presentation. And if you would also share just a little bit about how you came to your spiritual journey. That's so fascinating. Okay, you're on mute.
There you go. I'm usually the one that tells people they're on mute. So I went against my own policies there. Hello, everybody. So nice to be here with you all. And today it's kind of like a structured freestyle session, because I know what I'm going to talk about. I have a presentation. I haven't even dived into this presentation for around 6 months, 7 months now. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to not only talk about, share some poetry in between, kind of like just go in and out of the information. We're going to talk about some hybrid extraterrestrial awareness, which is right in alignment with the Wish Alliance community. And not only the science of hybridization, the modern awareness of it, but we're going to go back into the ancient past, hundreds of thousands of years, and taking a look at if there's any evidence for hybridization in ancient text. And if we even go into the fact that we could all be ET hybrids, right? We're going back into extreme antiquity. And as a lot of you probably here know and tuning in, is that my favorite topic is definitely ancient history, and actually ancient history and definitely extraterrestrial awareness. But to me, it goes hand in hand, because when we talk about extraterrestrial awareness, we're talking about galactic history. We're talking about millions of years of evolution and, for what we even got, how we even got to the place we are today. So when I speak about ancient history, we're going to be tying it into the hybrid connection. And I love this presentation. I think it's like a 30, maybe 45-minute presentation, but I like this one because I do presentations on ancient history. I do presentations on galactic awareness and extraterrestrials, but this is one of my presentations where I've had the opportunity to combine the two together. So we're going to go on an epic journey together. So let me tell you a little bit about me first. Again, my name is Neil, and I'm the founder of an organization called PortalToAscension. My story goes like this. I was born and raised in England, London, UK. I moved to the US when I was 12 years old. I was raised in a Hindu family. So I pretty much, did what I was told. I did follow the rites. I followed the rituals. I even sung bhajans, which are like Hindu hymns, in temple at my granddad's house. You would always have these like ceremonial events over there. And I was like immersed into the community, but I really never had any firm belief. Like I just did what I was told. And what I realized as I grew older is that a lot of first generation Indian kids, parents from India, but they're born out of India, are pretty much the same way as me, that they just do what they're told. They follow the rites and rituals. They even marry into Hindu families and continue the traditions, but they really don't have a firm foundation or belief. And if anything, they're more atheist, or they just following the rituals blindly. And that was kind of where I was until I turned 18 years old. And I went to college at Cal State Fullerton here. Well, not here. I'm in Mexico right now, but in Southern California, in Fullerton, Cal State Fullerton. And all of a sudden, I was introduced to a whole world of different people, right? And I'd already kind of had like wrote poetry about universal concepts, black holes, like just sci-fi kind of information that I didn't even know had any real reality to it. And as I started meeting more and more people and researching, I started stumbling onto ancient text. And very quickly, by age 19 in 2001, I started wondering, what is the root of all religion? The reason why PortalToAscension even exists right now was the original thought: what is the root of all religion? And as I started looking at the root of everything, I went as far back as I could, further and further back. And then eventually I ended up with the Sumerian text, which I'm going to be talking about today, going over some of the Sumerian scriptures. And then you get the story of Nibiru, you get the story of the Anunnaki, and all of a sudden there's an extra planet, a 10th planet in our solar system with an elliptical orbit. There's a clay tablet with a 2-scale map of the solar system that we live in, with all the planets in the right positions, but dating thousands of years back. You get images of wormholes with people coming out of it and snakes. And it looked to me like some very advanced understanding of quantum physics and space travel, and the way our galaxy was, that dated back, our solar system that dated back thousands of years when we were supposed to be primitive. So this is what kind of blew my mind, right? And I've been on a journey of mind-blowingness ever since. Like every single day. I actually created a meme today I'm going to release in a couple of days. And the meme is there a limit to how many times your mind can get blown in one lifetime? I think I'm about to reach it, because like there's just so much revolutionary information that just changes my awareness all the time and just adds to it. So as I started looking at the Sumerian scriptures, I realized as well that a lot of the ancient text from there has been borrowed on from all these different cultures and religions that exist now, including Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, Judaism. But these texts that they pulled from were talking about like star beings. So either every single religion in the world is completely BS, or you got to go back to the original source code, and the original source code is talking about star beings. So I'll let you guys guess which one I chose. I chose the latter, like I was like, wait a second. So this took me down a rabbit hole from like age 19, 2001 to 2006. I went deep into it all. I was in I remember in 2003, I was at Panera Bread with the Quran, the Bible, the Sumerian scriptures, and I was highlighting areas that were similar. One of the stories, I'm not sure if we'll talk about it in the presentation, but one of the stories that really got to me was the flood story of Gilgamesh. And the flood story of Gilgamesh is actually an extraterrestrial hybrid being that was on this planet, that was hybridized with a modern human. And basically, it's the story of Noah, the Noah's flood story. And when I realized that this ancient text had Noah's flood story, but then also all these main religions have it as well, I started expanding out of that and realized almost every ancient civilization in the world that was created before 13,000 years ago, before Noah's flood, or have some sort of history over 13,000 years ago, have talked about the same exact flood scenario. It was like a collective trauma that we all went through. That was the one story that really started me realizing that there's a lot of connections in our ancient history. And since then, 2006, 2008, by the time 2008 hit, I was deep into conspiracies. I had gone through bloodline information, extraterrestrials, Illuminati, they're out to get us. And in 2008, I was in 2007, really, I was in a lot of fear. I was like, these elite are out to get us. They're trying to control us. We're on a prison planet. That was kind of my mentality back in 2007 until 2008. And in 2008, I was at an open mic, at my first spoken word poetry open mic. The first time I ever performed, actually, is the day that I had the shift. And my friend was on stage at that time, and he said that, well, he was singing a song, and the song was called My Name is Love, right? And he was just singing the song, My Name is Love. And I was going through a lot at that point. I was really like upset at the elite for what they did to me. Like, it was like controlling my life. And then all of a sudden, like, when I'm like in my head and thinking about like life in general, and he's singing this song, and tears came to my eyes, and I realized that I've been on this journey of spirituality for like 7 years, right? And I was in fear. Like, everything I'm learning is about how beautiful humanity is, how diverse we are, how ancient we are, how connected to everything we are, including each other. But then why do I feel so down? And I realized in that moment, it was August 2008, the month after I got fired as a financial advisor, and the same month I created Portal to Ascension. And then I realized that the missing link was love. And I shifted my perspective to thinking that this is happening to me, to realizing that I'm creating this reality, and I chose to come here to experience this duality so that I could basically get the experiences that I really signed up for. And as I started understanding that, I changed the face. I had a dream 2 weeks later to change my group name on Facebook from 2012 Consciousness, Mind, Evolution, and Presence to Portal to Ascension. And so I changed it. At that time, you had to send an email to Facebook and ask them to do it. And then Portal to Ascension was born, like 2 weeks after I shifted from fear to love. And ever since then, I've been creating a lot of events. At this point, well over 3,500 individual conferences, retreats, tours, workshops, webinars, and it just continued to grow and grow. And I'll give you before I get into the presentation here, I'll give you a couple milestones of Portal to Ascension. 2008 to 2012 was testing grounds. I did a few tours. I did an extraterrestrial channeling tour in 2011 where my friend channeled a being from Sirius. We went from San Diego to Vancouver and back down. We did 3 meditation sound healing tours up and down the coast of the West Coast to Vancouver and back to San Diego. And it was really just like what my ex-wife would say is missionary work. I was just a straight up missionary at that point, like I couldn't even, literally the money from one city paid for me to go to the next city. And if I didn't get any money from an event at that city, I couldn't even go to the next one. And that happened like a couple of times. I was stranded a few places. And it was just because I was completely over the corporate world. And I was so about, at that point, actually, I was really, really, really more passionate than now, believe it or not, about extraterrestrial awareness. And to the point that I wanted everybody to know. So I would like hit the road and just like be talking about it and doing events. And but then in 2012, I decided to create a couple of live conferences. One was for December 21st, 2012. So I did a November 2012 event called Cosmic Reunion 2012. And then in March of 2013, Cosmic Reunion 4th Density. That was the milestone of Portal to Ascension, where we went from these small random sound healing events, all-day ancient alien events, to full-on conferences. And since 2012, it's been exponential progression. But in 2015, I created this online university in which many of you probably have been a part of. And the online university went from 1 event a month in 2015 to about 110 events a year starting in 2018. So at this point in Portal to Ascension, creating around 110 events a year, 80 to 90% of them are online. Obviously, because of COVID, much more of a percentage, but then the rest of them are live. And I'm happy to say that this year in October, we're starting our live events again, and going to be doing our live conference in San Diego in October of this year, which I'm really excited about because I love doing online events. But when you're there in person with people and you get all these hugs and connect to people and like, it's just a whole different experience, you know, and that's what we really need. That's what I need in my life anyway, is connection with others, because that fuels my soul when I'm around other people that are into all this awareness. So that was a little summary of me. I'm going to go ahead now and get right into this presentation. But Sheila, I do need you to give me permission to share my screen, if you could do so. There we go. All right. What I want to kind of give you a sneak peek about first is what I'm going to be doing this weekend, which is this presentation that if any of you guys are interested, you can sign up on PortalToAscension.org. And I've been researching this for hardcore for the last 9 months. And it's called The Truth, the Life, and the Times of Pythagoras, 3 p.m. Pacific on Saturday. I'm going to be going deep into this awareness. But just to give you a little sneak peek here, first of all, I got 2 slides of disclaimers, and you'll find out this weekend why. And then we're going to go over Greece in the 6th century, Greece in the 5th century, Milesian philosophy, the birth and the childhood of Pythagoras. Last 9 months.
Seems like you're having some feedback.
Yeah, somebody can mute themselves. We're going to go over why he was a vegetarian, why he told his people not to eat meat, what he believed about the soul and reincarnation, which is like a huge trip. And something that's really amazingly interesting is the 2 orders of Pythagoreans that literally became the priests of the Christian age and the secret societies that literally control the world. So this is going to be a great presentation, including the music of the spheres, music research and Western music scale. So if you guys are interested in that, you can sign up at
why he was a vegetarian, why he told
and
people.
Sheila, I think it's yours that we can actually hear. So if you can mute yourself, maybe.
I don't have YouTube up.
Well, I can see your bar coming up right there. So it's definitely.
So let me check.
That literally became the priests of the Christian age and the secret societies that literally control the world. So this is going to be a great.
There we go. Yeah, it's definitely you. All right. All right. So yeah, if you're interested, PortalToAscension.org, sign up there. And I've done a lot of presentations, but this is probably one of the most fun presentations I've ever done, because it's just like revolutionary, groundbreaking information when you find out about all the truths and the mystery schools in which he went all over the world and where he got initiated. It's going to literally blow your mind. And I've been going through like that for the last 9 months, just nonstop mind-blowing awareness. Let us begin. All right, everybody. So today's presentation is Ancient Hybrids and Hybrids in Antiquity. But first, we got to ask ourselves, what is a hybrid? And again, the reason why I chose this presentation is because of Wish Alliance. The H stands for hybrid, but also to kind of make it more grounded and practical awareness. I just met this person recently around here in Mexico, and she asked me today, what am I up to? And I said, I'm about to do a presentation on extraterrestrial hybrids in ancient history. And I could tell that she did not know what to say back to me. But so this presentation really is to ground it a little bit more, to show that not only do we have the information about this, but the research, but we also have ancient texts that have spoke about it, and it's more credible than those who may think that, that is way out there would realize. So in biology, the offspring of 2 plants or animals or different species or varieties, such as a mule, a hybrid, or donkey, is a horse, or a horse and a horse. I'm sorry. A hybrid of a donkey and a horse obviously is a mule. So that's like the biological term, right? A thing made up by 2 different elements, a hybrid. It could be any type of thing. Doesn't even have to be human DNA. Just 2 elements put together is a hybrid. And then the third one is genetic hybridization. It's the process of interbreeding individuals from genetically distinct populations to produce a hybrid. A genetic hybrid would therefore carry two different alleles of the same gene. And we're going to speak about, all of these here today, mainly biology and genetic hybridization. But for the most part, we're going to really go into the concept of possible genetic hybridization. There are generalized forms of hybrids that I just wrote these and came up with myself. But in my research of extraterrestrial awareness, disclosure, our ancient galactic history, just from all the experiences that I've heard, and even including Dolores Cannon, I got a lot of awareness and information from Dolores as well, and I worked with her many times in the past. And what I got from this information was there's a soul consciousness infusion hybrid, and then there's genetic hybrids, which is etheric, could be an etheric geneticization, like in the DNA manipulating etheric realms, in the astral realms, or actual physical, in a biology happening on a physical plane. When it comes to the soul and the consciousness hybrids, it could usually be that a specific type of soul from a certain area of the galaxy, certain planet, certain dimension, hybridizes themselves with the human DNA or a human soul. In genetic hybridization, there is natural hybridization through the forced or natural mating of animals, right? And hybridization in which scientists combine the DNA of animals to create a hybrid. In natural hybridization, we've seen that in our history, around 300,000 years ago, it has been documented there was at least 9 other Homo species on Earth. So something that I really wish a lot of the world would realize and understand is that, and it's not that the information is hidden, it's actually out there. This is mainstream science, what I'm sharing with you right now. But not too many people really think about the gravity of the fact that we actually existed with at least 9 other documented Homo species on Earth at the same time in the 300,000 years we lived, right? So let me put a little disclaimer here. Maybe a decade or so ago, they used to think that humans, Homo sapiens sapien, you and I, right, had been on Earth around 100 to 150,000 years because that was the oldest fossilized Homo sapien that we had found, right? But then within the last 10 to 15 years, that completely changed. Why? They found a fossilized Homo sapiens skeletons, a remain that is 300,000 years ago. That's that old. So now it's changed to, oh yeah, humans have been on Earth for 300,000 years. But just understand how funny that really is, because basically every time they find something older, they basically say, well, okay, now we just found the oldest version of this thing, right? We found a 300,000-year-old skeleton. Oh, this must be the first human, the first Homo sapien. So from my research in ancient history, Homo sapiens like ourselves definitely go back further in past. And if you believe in time travel, then there's a whole other ballgame right there too. But definitely at least 300,000 years. Let's just go with a conventional one. I'm going to keep this, instead of going speculative and going hardcore with, we probably had many more Homo species on the planet, I'm going to go with just the normally accepted information, because even that is really profound. So at least 9 other Homo species on Earth, meaning that we interacted with them. There were tribes. There might have been battles between us. We could have shared information. If some of them were sentient and conscious enough, we could have had some sort of trade going on. And that isn't even including the Paracas people, right, from Peru, Peru being one of the main archaeological sites in the entire planet, because literally the entirety of Peru seems to be one big archaeological site in which they found the elongated skull people there. And we did a presentation releasing the DNA results on PortalToAscension off the Paracas people with Brian Forrester when he did the DNA results there, that literally showed that there was some sort of hybrid being that were not directly connected. There were different species of being. They weren't Homo sapien. And it's pretty much a given that these beings were not just Neanderthal or some sort of being that we say that could have been so primitive that they couldn't interact or communicate with us. They seem to have some sort of advanced kind of structure, and possibly even an advanced civilization and society, because we actually find not only their remains, but we also find their structures that they use. And we find later in Peru, they actually have hieroglyphs of these beings as if they were the royalty for the Homo sapiens, right? So we even have evidence in Peru that these elongated skull beings that weren't Homo sapien were actually the royalty, whereas the commoners were people like you and me, right? So we existed with other Homo species. Humans have been crossbreeding with other Homo species in our ancient past. That's a given. We've accepted that. Most people in the world have around 2 to 5% Neanderthal in them, right? And this Denisovan, right? Most people have around 1 to 3% Denisovan in them, which are two other Homo species that existed. So there has been hybridization. Homo, the word Homo is an 18th century derivation from the Latin Homo, which refers to humans of either sex. The species name sapien means wise, sapient, knowledgeable. So we are basically a human that's wise. That's what Homo sapien means, meaning that we probably weren't once, and then we had the sentient spark, and now we're given this wisdom and this consciousness. It is known that hominoids are able to interbreed. That's completely true. Any thing within the same, not the specific species, but any Homo species can interbreed with the other one, no problem at all. So could this include hominoids of any other planet, right? We hear in ancient texts of the Nephilim coming down to Earth, the fallen angels mating with the daughters of men. We have the galactic history where we talk about the beings from Lyra fractalizing out into the whole of the cosmos, into Sirius, Orion, and beyond. But if they actually are hominoids just like ourselves, it would make sense based on just regular science and what we've seen on Earth that they could actually interbreed with us, not even just etherically, but physically actually mate with humans. So let's go a little bit scientific here, just to set a precedence for what we're speaking about. So hybrids by scientific classification, this is in 2014, okay? So cytoplasmic hybrid embryos, which is an embryo created through cell nuclear replacement using animal eggs, right? One type. Hybrid embryos, which is embryos created by mixing human sperm and animal eggs, or human eggs and animal sperm. Human chimera embryos, human embryos which have animal cells added to them during early development. Then we have animal chimera embryos, which are animal embryos which have human cells added to them during early development. These are the ones that are just creating a stir right now because, well, back then. And by the way, all of these aren't just theories. These are all actual things that we're doing right now. These are the hybridizations that's happening within mainstream science. Then we have transgenic human embryos, which are human embryos which have animal genes inserted to them during early development. And that's what they've been studying this way before 2014, but this is the classification scale that came out in 2014 as we were getting into genetically mutating and manipulating human embryos. So the word hybrid comes from the Latin term hybrida. It's first used to describe the offspring of a tame sow and a wild boar, and to describe Roman soldiers of mixed descent. That was where we first find this word.
What just happened?
Its usage in English dates far back as 1601, when Philemon Holland, in his translation of Pliny the Elder, described how there is no creature engendered so soon with the wild of the kind as doth swine, and verily such hogs in old time they call hybridus, a man would say half wild. So we see that's when we first start seeing it being utilized in English, and I just threw that in there because we're all speaking English here together. The most recent phase in the development of the concept of hybridity happened in context of the emergence of genetic engineering. A key difference between hybrids today and the 18th to 19th century counterparts is that modern discourse, they are perceived as being designed or made or manufactured artificially than produced organically through the natural process of selective breeding or grafting. Scientists today create hybrids, chimeras, and transgenic creatures. So when we look at the ancient past and what we're going to get into soon, a lot of these were thought to be produced organically. But then when you look at even more ancient past than that, you start getting into some texts that make it seem like, wait a second, it almost sounds like it could have been done in a lab. And now we fast forward to modern time, and we're talking about all these categorizations, and not only the ones that I just gave you, which are what we're doing on Earth, these categories right here, but also the fact that ET hybridization programs, in which we've done a lot of presentations on, especially with Geraldine Orozco had an epic 3-hour presentation of PortalToAscension she did on it, which means that there could be more advanced beings that are utilizing our DNA, combining it with their own or other DNA in order to create hybrids of themselves or other beings. And it seems to be that there are multiple hybridization programs. We'll get into that. I think we're going to get into that in a little bit. Now, geneticists can theoretically create hybrids and chimeras almost instantaneously using CRISPR, which is a technology. Chimera hybrid, a fire-breathing female monster with a lion's head, a goat's body, and a serpent's tail, and in other texts, a human-bird hybrid or an angelic type hominoid. So I'm throwing this in there because they're using the word in chimera. They're currently using that in modern science as genetic hybrids, utilizing animal embryos. But that is actually an ancient term, and I'll show you that in a second here, an ancient term of an actual hybrid, which was a fire-breathing female monster with a lion's head, ghost body, serpent's tail. And CRISPR tech, this is a bunch of jargon here, so I'm going to kind of skim over it. But CRISPR is a family of DNA sequences found in the genomes of organisms such as bacteria and whatever that says. These sequences are derived from DNA fragments that had previously infected prokaryote. They used to detect and destroy DNA from similar bacteriophages during subsequent infections. Hence, these sequences play a key role in antiviral defense system and provide a form of acquired immunity. That's what I wanted to get at right there. Okay, so basically, they're using this technology to create some sort of hybrids in order to create an acquired immunity to protect humans and whatever they're creating from specific ailments, diseases, and issues of the psyche, like mental issues. And immediately this gives me, takes me to the movie Gattaca. Raise of hands if anybody's seen that movie real quick. Gattaca, any of you seen it? No? Oh, no. Okay, raise your hand if you have not seen it. Okay, so all of you have seen. Well, you got to watch the movie Gattaca, because basically what they've done in that movie is that they have got to a point where Ethan Hawke is in that movie. It's like one of my favorite movies. And they got to a point where they can hybridize humans and create humans and use genetic sequencing in order to take away all of the issues that you have. So a mother and a father would actually go to the geneticist before they give birth, and they would basically choose all the traits that they want, and all the negative traits would be removed. And that's what CRISPR technology is basically getting to in order to allow humans to do. So we actually are at a point of this, but it's definitely not widely accepted yet, where they can genetically shift the DNA in a human in order to take away certain things that might result in them having a harder time at life, even including the way they look. So for lead study, author Jun Wu of the Salk Institute, we need only to look at mythical chimeras like the human-bird hybrids we know as angels for a different perspective. In ancient civilization, chimeras were associated with God, he says, and our ancestors thought that chimeric form can guard humans. In a sense, that's what the team hopes human-animal hybrids would one day do. Right? This is from National Geographic, and this was from a study that they're doing when they're attempting to combine animal DNA with human DNA in order to take out certain traits like aggressiveness against humans, almost like an android, and create them in a way where they can benefit and be of assistance to humanity. And some people actually have reservations about this. But then my thing is, isn't this what the ETs did, right? And it seems like every being wants to create in their image. Every sentient being, when they become conscious, the original thing, we were created in his image and his likeness. We see that throughout all of antiquity, that when beings become conscious and sentient, all of a sudden want to create. This whole aspect of creation continues to happen. And what's happening with humans is we're also attempting to do that. We're attempting to create a species that is basically created in our image, not only organic species, but definitely even computers and androids. That is kind of like our baby. We're creating these things in our own image to basically process things that we can, we normally wouldn't be able to do as humans, but giving them specific traits to be a benefit towards us. This right here is about the mixed up traits, the mixed up world of animal hybrids. So mating between two species can produce offspring with new colors, shapes, and behaviors. And there is a hybrid bird in the Amazon that has a DNA variation. And let's talk about the hybrid bird for a second here. So deep in the Amazon rainforest, lives two green birds. A snow-capped manakin has a splash of white on its head. The opal-crowned manakin looks very similar, but this species crown can appear white, blue, or red depending on the light. It's like a rainbow. This individual, Alfredo, is a biologist at the Autonomous University of Yucatan in Merida, which happens to be only 2 hours from where I'm at right now. Thousands of years ago, these two species of birds started mating with each other. The offspring initially had crowns that were dull whitish gray, but in later generations, some birds grew yellow feathers. This bright color made males more attractive to females. Those females may have preferred mating with the yellow-capped males rather than snow-capped or opal-crowned males. Eventually, those birds became separate enough from the two original species to be their own species. The golden-crowned manakin, it's the first known case of hybrid species in the Amazon. Usually different species don't mate, but when they do, the offspring will be what are called hybrid. The molecules of DNA in each of the animal cells holds instructions. These guide what an animal looks like, how it behaves, and the sound it makes. When animals mate, the young get a mixture of their parents' DNA, and they can end up with a mixture of their parents' traits. I'm going to break that down in a second here, after we do this slide. If the parents are from the same species, their DNA is very similar, but DNA from a different species or a species groups will have more variations. Hybrid offspring get a more variety in the DNA that they inherit. So what happens when the DNA of two animal groups mix in a hybrid? There are many possible outcomes. Sometimes the hybrid is weaker than the parents or doesn't survive. Sometimes it's stronger. Sometimes it behaves more like one parent species than the other. And sometimes its behavior falls somewhere in between each of the parent. Scientists are trying to understand how this process called hybridization plays out. Hybrid birds may take on new migration routes they found. Some hybrid fish appear more vulnerable to predators. And skip that last line. So let me just break this down for a quick sec here, because this is actually almost explaining the Anunnaki story of what happened and the hybridization programs and the scratching of different hybridizations that weren't working out because the species wasn't actually advanced enough, couldn't hold consciousness enough, would fall apart, wasn't able to do the work or even live on Earth. So this bird here, two different species, mated, and eventually an individual species that's separate from those got together. So when we're talking about extraterrestrial hybrids, we're talking about the same thing. Two different species of hominoids, or maybe not even that. What if it's some type of reptilian DNA with human DNA, right? What occurs is when you have two of the same species together, the variations are very, are not as large as if you had two different species together. So when you got these two DNAs that are from different species and you combine them together, the variations are so diverse that to come out with the same result every time will not always occur, right? And the fact that you have more variations gives you more of an opportunity to express and experience a wide range of experiences. And this is just one thing that they've observed naturally occurring in the Amazon forest. And I just thought it was very interesting because what they're saying here is that, sometimes the hybrid is weaker, sometimes it doesn't survive, sometimes it's stronger. When I was going into the Anunnaki story and about all the hybridizations of the different humans, it was the same kind of thing. This geneticist here thinks that humans have evidence to suggest that they're a chimp-pig hybrid. Disclaimer first. I'm not saying that we're chimp-pig hybrid. I don't even think that he's correct in what he's saying here, but we're going to dissect what he is saying a little bit just to understand what has really been uncovered by just this awareness. American geneticist has caused debate by suggesting that human species began as the hybrid offspring of a male pig and a female chimpanzee. The claim has been made at the University of Georgia, one of the world's leading authorities on hybridization in animals. He bases his hypothesis on the fact that although Homo sapiens has features in common with chimps, Humans also had many distinguished characters which cannot be found in any other monkey apes. He points to traits like light-haired skin, the fat that we have, light-colored eyes, protruding noses. So what is really being discovered here is that they're not able to find and track specific traits in our DNA sequence that connect to animals on Earth, right? And to me, this is actually more of a smoking gun on the fact that we're hybridized with beings not from Earth. Okay, now that we got all that jargon out of the way, let's get into the ancient past and delve into some ancient scripture, shall we? Hybridization in ancient historical text. Let's start with Genesis 6:1-4. When men began to multiply on the face of the ground and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were fair, and they took to wife such of them as they chose. Then the Lord said, my spirit shall not abide in man forever, for he is flesh, but his days shall be 120 years. The Nephilim were earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came to the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. These were the mighty men that were of old, the men of renown. So what could this be referring to? There are many scriptures that talk about some sort of beings coming from the heavens to earth. If you go into the Anunnaki Sumerian scriptures, they're literally people from the stars that were a second tier of gods, because the planet Nibiru had two tiers of gods. They had the Anunnaki and the Igigi, two tiers of gods. And the Igigi were left on earth, and the Igigi were the fallen angels. The Anunnaki were the gods. This is the original text in which Christianity, the Old Testament here for Judaism, and many other actual religions pull from. So in this case, it seems like there's another hominoid species that exists in somewhere in the cosmos, comes down to earth, and either this is literal and they actually mate with the daughters of men, or this is a metaphor for genetic hybridization in some sort of lab setting in which the daughters of men basically mate or have some sort of hybridization program going on with the Igigi, which are the fallen angels, creating an offspring. And then those offspring were very tall and giants, and those were the Nephilim. So we see this in the Old Testament in Genesis. So could this be DNA genetic science-based manipulation, or could it literally be two different hominoid species mating with each other, as I just said? This happened right before the Great Flood as well. So could the Great Flood be a global reset, right? Because we also have, for example, in Genesis, in the Bible, it says in the world was tohu vohu, right? That's the Aramaic term, tohu vohu, right? And in English, we've translated it to, in the earth was void and desolate, right? The earth was void and desolate. But when you say the earth was void and desolate, it makes it sound like that was the beginning. So the reason why a lot of fundamental Christians believe that I think it's 6,000 years old, that the earth is only that long and dinosaurs never existed and all that, is because they date back to tohu vohu. And when you look in the Bible and you get that dating, it goes, well, the earth was void and desolate in the beginning, and in the beginning was tohu vohu, and tohu vohu in the Bible says was only this many thousand years ago, therefore nothing else existed before that. But the thing is, tohu vohu was Aramaic, and then it became Hebrew, and then it got changed into Phoenician Canaanite. No, it was Aramaic, Phoenician Canaanite, then Hebrew. The same language kept changing, and the meaning of those words changed as well. If you go back to the original text of Aramaic and you translate the word tohu vohu, it actually means something different. And what does it mean? It means voided and desolated. The earth was voided and desolated, right? So when you translate it from the actual stance of what it really meant, you now have a realization that something happened to earth where there was a global reset. And could that be the Great Flood? And could it have been that there was some sort of hybridization program on the planet that was reset by the beings that had created it? And a lot of this I'm getting from the Sumerian scriptures, and there's other types of, I can go down a whole other journey really in a story to tell you that The Great Flood could have had also something to do with Atlantis and wasn't a great reset, but was some sort of cataclysm that happens at the end of every Yuga cycle. And that's what we're going to get to in a little bit from here. But right now, we're talking about this text, which specifically pulls from the Sumerian scriptures. So let's talk about the Nephilim. The Anunnaki are a group of deities in ancient Mesopotamian cultures. And a little plug for a conference that's coming up on February 19th. We're doing an all-day conference called Ancient Sumer and the Mesopotamia Online Conference. It's a 10-hour event, all on ancient scriptures from Mesopotamia and Sumer, where we're going to go deep into the information. If you guys want to know more about that, that's on the online events on Portal to Ascension. So the Nephilim. The Anunnaki are a group of deities in ancient Mesopotamian cultures. And Enlil, which En means Lord and Lil means wind, Lord of the wind, Lord of the storm. In later Akkadian texts, Enlil is the son of Anshar and Kishar. The Nephilim are the offspring of the sons of God and the daughters of men in Genesis 6:4. So these terms are directly taken from this text that talks about star beings. Right now, I'm giving you information, which is literally the first information that I came across in 2001. These kind of points right here is what really got me into spirituality and consciousness. And I just threw this in here because it's interesting to note how the translation shifts all the time. And we really need to go back to the original source code if we want to know what the truth is. And that's what I did with the Sumerian scriptures, but there's actually text that predates that as well, in which, you know, I've explored too. But that's the word with tohu vohu. Another word would be Elohim. Like, you've probably heard the word Elohim. It says that Elohim created us in their image, and the Elohim created us in his image and his likeness. You know, that's pretty much the Old Testament. The Elohim created us in his image and his likeness. But the Elohim in Aramaic actually means goddesses. Not only one plural, it's plural, but it actually is plural of the feminine. The goddesses created us in their image and their likeness. But over time, that shifted as well. Another example, the word El. We use the word El in Spanish, right? El this, El that for masculine. Well, if you go back far enough, El was actually a feminine term from Elohim that literally meant goddess. So here we go. We saw the Nephilim there. We seemed like grasshoppers in our eyes, and we looked the same to them. And then we changed it to, we even saw giants there. And we take out the word Nephilim completely from this next one, right? And then the King James Bible, which is one of the most manipulated Bibles on earth. And there we saw the giants, the son of Anak, which come off the giants. We were in our own sight as grasshoppers, and so we were in their sight. So now that we're on the concept of Sumeria and the Sumerian text, let's go a little deeper into ancient Sumer. There are many versions of the origin stories, and the Babylonian text does not have one distinct origin story in them. The Sumerians date back to around 4000 BC, right, in the heyday, and then we have the Babylonians around 2000 years later that actually took over that same area. They had the same deities, same gods, but a lot of things shifted, and some of the names shifted, some of the myths around them changed as well. I mean, 2000 years, a lot of things changed. The origins of humans are described in another early second millennia Sumerian poem called the Song of Ho. In this myth, as in many other Sumerian stories, the god Enlil is described as the deity who separates heaven and earth and creates humankind. Humanity is formed to provide for the gods, a common theme in Mesopotamian literature. According to the Sumerian story, Enki and Nima, the Igigi, right? And I don't know if you remember, I just said that earlier, burdened with the toil of creating the earth, complained to Nama, who was an Anunnaki, the primeval mother, about their hard work. She in turn roused her son Enki, the god of wisdom, and urged him to create a substitute to free the gods from their toil. Nama then kneaded some clay, placed it in her womb, and gave birth to the first humans. This is the origin of the hybrid story of the Anunnaki. When a lot of people talk about ancient Sumer, many people know about the Anunnaki, especially in the spiritual community. But what people don't really always realize is that the ancient text talks about two god races that both came from Nibiru. There wasn't one god race, there were two. One was more spiritually advanced than the other. The Ijiji was the other. The Ijiji were the workers, the commoners of this other planet. They weren't, it's not like they were treated bad or slaves or anything. They just were not as, let's say their body avatars didn't have as many powers and they didn't live as long as the Anunnaki did, but they came from the same planet. So we have here the Ijiji burdened with the toil of creating the earth, right? Burdened with the toil of creating the earth. Because the Anunnaki, Enki and Nima, gave them the genetic codes, told them to do it, gave them all the instructions, and they were the ones that had to come and do it. They were the lab scientists of the Nibiru planet. And then, let's get back to here. Nama then kneaded some clay, placed it in her womb, and gave birth to the first humans. So this is the origin story of a metaphoric story of genetic hybridization of humans on Earth. Because the Ijiji were like, hey, we're doing too much here. We really need some help. And therefore, the first human was created utilizing a current hominoid that existed on the planet called Homo erectus. Homo erectus, that's where we came from. Homo erectus plus this DNA created Homo sapien. This is just one story, right? Because there are many other stories of genetic hybridizations of humans as well. So it seems like either this is all the same story with different names, or the same thing happened over and over and over again for maybe hundreds of thousands of years, maybe millions of years. The first man was created in Eden, which is a Sumerian word, actually, which means flat terrain, right? Initially, human beings were unable to reproduce on their own, but were later modified with the help of Enki and Ninki, and then basically we were able to do that. So they had to continuously hybridize us until we got to a point where they were able to assist us in having reproduction organs. Now, here's another disclaimer. That there are two different versions of this. One was we were a slave race, right? And utilized as slaves. And then there's another version in which they weren't trying to use us as slaves, but they were attempting to create and incarnate into us to experience themselves in this dimension, right? So there's two different versions of it. There's the people that really just go down like we were a slave species to the Anunnaki, and then there's those that say it was meant to be. And then there's a third story, actually, that there were Enki and Enlil, one of which was trying to do it for nefarious reasons, the brothers, and the other one which was trying to do it for reasons of just basically creating in their own image, and it was completely neutral in doing so. But when we were created, one of them attempted to start utilizing nefariously from the Ijiji, and then the Ijiji were left on Earth when the Anunnaki went back to their home planet. And who did the Ijiji eventually become? Well, they were the fallen angels. Who were the fallen angels connected to? Well, they're connected to the light bearers, the angel of death, the Luciferian energy, the Illuminati. Then we have the bloodlines. Then we have the Sumerian bloodline going to Egypt bloodline, going to Roman bloodline, going to the European bloodlines. And now we have the bloodline of the Ijiji permeating throughout history, starting from this civilization that always thought that there was some sort of basically divine connection because they came from some other planet. And I know I just said that really fast, but that is basically the whole connection of how this Sumerian story and the fallen angels connects to the secret societies of modern day, and how a lot of these secret societies believe that they came from this planet and that they're not from here. And that's also where the conspiracy theories of the reptilians originated from, is because some people believe that the Ijiji were actually a reptilian race, and the reptilian race stayed on the planet, hybridized themselves with the daughters of men, creating the Nephilim created the giants eventually became the Illuminati, and so on and so forth. So Enki thinks of germinating powers of the clay and waters of the abyss, and he tells Namu to have some womb goddesses pinch off this clay and thicken it so she can mold it to give birth to the humans. Now here is text from the Sumerian scriptures. After I take a sip of water, I shall read it. Mix the heart of the clay that is in over the abyss. The good and princely fashioners will thicken the clay. You, Namu, do you bring the limbs into existence? Nima, earth mother or birth goddess, will work above you. The goddesses of birth will stand by you at your fashioning. Oh, my mother, decree it's the newborn's fate. Ninma will bind upon it the image of the gods. It is man. Without the sperm of a male, she gave birth to offspring, to the embryo of mankind. This whole entire thing could warrant a 30-minute presentation itself to break it down, but I'll do it in a few seconds here. So basically, when we see clay as a metaphor in many ancient scriptures to talk about the birthing of something, right? And now we have the obviously Nima, the earth mother or birth goddess, right? Birthing goddess will work above you. So we have this whole above kind of maybe a space kind of connection there. The goddesses of birth, right? Female energy again, will stand by you at your fashioning. Oh, my mother, decree it's the newborn's fate. What is the newborn's fate? Who is the newborn? It's man. It's us. But without the sperm, a miraculous conception, the birthing of a virgin birth of humanity, she gave to the offspring the embryo of mankind. This is the story of Garden of Eden and Adam and Eve first being created. This is where the text originally started from. But as you can see, it's feminine all throughout. And it was a miraculous conception, a virgin birth. But that's even might be metaphoric because maybe it was some sort of laboratory experiment. And I'm just throwing that out there, but there's definitely a lot of information and text that actually make it seem like it's some sort of actual scientific thing that's going on. And just to go here real quick and show you this list, we see that I just showed you just one scripture right there, right? And because I can't go over all of them, I'm just showing you this Wikipedia page. There's literally a Wikipedia page on the list of hybrids in folklore, right? Because there are so many of them. And many of these actually seem to have some sort of connection to the Anunnaki story or some sort of global reset that occurred over and over and over again when these hybrids weren't doing well, that they didn't come out the way whatever was creating them wanted them to come out. We have Toro hybrids, we have human goat hybrids, we have human bird hybrids, human fish hybrids, human snake hybrids, right? And then if you think about like the Lyran people, in which there is a race of feline hominoids that could have been partly the ones that seeded our galaxy, the hominoids that began that, we have human cat hybrids, you know, and that kind of thing seems to have been mentioned many, many times throughout all of ancient scriptures happening on Earth. So here's the question. And here's a Lyran image right there, actually. I didn't even realize that was going to be next. Could Earth be a galactic genetic library? That many species on the planet have been hybridized with hominoids on other planets and other dimensions. Many ancient cultures seem to think so, and some spoke about the gods who created them or seeded our planet. So could this have been done in other worlds, right? What is being referred to here by all these ancient scriptures, could this has happened somewhere else as well? From being into this information is 2022 now, 2001. So it's been 21 years of me getting to the Sumerian scriptures and then really just diving into everything extraterrestrial and spiritual consciousness, ancient history. I have now come to an awareness that I feel the reason why it's not arrogant to say the Earth is the biggest light show in the universe is because many, if not all, beings within our galaxy have donated DNA to the Earth experiment, and we are basically living out that experience. Earth is almost like a test of galactic racism, how we can get, or let's say galactic speciesism, how we can all live in harmony with each other when we have all these DNAs contributed from all over our, at least our localized galaxy, but maybe an entire galaxy. You know, there are ant people, there are cockroach people, there are frog type people, there are fish people, you know, they're beings, not even people, but beings all over our galaxy. And the paradox is what is supposed to happen is that as we evolve and we go into our future, we end up becoming the beings that created us in the first place. So when they came here, when they went into linearity from these lower and lower dimensions, they went from no time to some fluid time to cyclic time to linear time. And as they started incarnating lower and lower dimension, time became more linear until it came to the point where we're on this earth. And now we live within this linearity in which in our future, we end up going out into the rest of the cosmos and inhabiting in our, space-time matrix, inhabiting the planets that were originally the planets that came to Earth in the first place and seeded us, plus, shifting into other realities and dimensions where we can interact with these beings, because as we go into our future and time stops becoming so linear and starts becoming more fluid, we're able to go through different dimensions and interact with different beings. And that's the whole concept of the fifth dimension. For example, in the third dimension, we're actually not in the third dimension, we're in the fourth dimension, right? The third density is what we're in, but we live in the fourth dimension. The fourth dimension is time, right? In the dimensions, you have length, height, and width. That's 3 dimensions. But the fourth dimension is the object placed within those 3 constructs, right? And now you have something lodged in space and time, right? So we exist in that fourth dimensional experience. When we get into the fifth dimension, the extra dimension is a dimension of time. You no longer have 2 dimensions of time, which is a beginning and an end. You now have a beginning, middle, and an end. You have a triangle, which I'll be talking about in my Pythagoras presentation on Saturday, but you have an integration point. And the whole concept of why we were seated in the first place was to create a Garden of Eden, a 5th dimensional paradise in which there could be an integration point that we can live in peace and harmony after all these dualities that we'd experienced in our incarnational cycles within our galaxy. So Earth was originally meant to be like this, a Garden of Eden. So now what our eventual goal is and ultimate reality will be is shifting out of this karmic cycle so we can get to a point where we get into the integration. And the integration is that 5th dimensional reality, which is only the beginning, because then we get to a point where time no longer even exists in our reality, right? As we completely transcend dimensions. All right, so let's go to ancient India now. In ancient India, we have something called Naga, which in Sanskrit means serpent. A member or a class of mythical semi-divine beings, half human and half cobra. Female Nagas, which are called Naginis or Nagis, are serpent princesses of striking beauty. So we also have this in India, right? And what's a serpent being? That is probably something that most of us have heard of before. Well, I'll give you a clue. It's right here in the top left-hand corner, and her name is Medusa, right? So we even have her as a hybrid being as well. And then we have, of course, Shiva has a snake there. Vishnu has all these snakes and Nagas. And the interesting thing is that when Shiva reincarnated onto Earth, when Vishnu reincarnated onto Earth, the snakes would also reincarnate as humans, reptilian incarnations. If you've ever heard the story of Ramayana, has anybody heard of Lakshman before? If you have, raise your hand. Lakshman. Okay, nobody here. Okay. So the story of Ramayana is that Vishnu came down to Earth and reincarnated as Rama, and his wife, which is right here, his goddess wife, also reincarnated, and she came down as Sita, right? And this was at a time in the ancient past where there was some sort of demonic energy on the planet that had manifested in the name of Ravana. And Ravana had this whole entire compound and fortress that was on the island of Sri Lanka. And Rama and Sita reincarnated onto Earth in order to basically help the planet get rid of this demonic force. But Shiva, the one of the 3 in the Trinity, was really, really great friends with Vishnu and didn't want Vishnu to do it alone. So Shiva reincarnated. Who did Shiva reincarnate as? Hanuman, the monkey god. So Shiva came down as Hanuman, and Hanuman, Shiva, and Hanuman, Ramayana, Hanuman, Rama, and Sita all went on this quest, starting in Hampi, India, in order to go to Sri Lanka after being banished into the forest to conquer Ravana and bring peace and tranquility to the world, especially after Ravana had kidnapped Sita and taken her to the fortress. So there's a few things here. First of all, Hanuman was actually a hybrid human, a monkey type of human that coexisted with regular Homo sapiens on that planet at that time. And then secondly, the incarnation of Lakshman, that was Rama's brother, was one of the serpent snakes, the reptilians, reincarnating into a human body on Earth. Okay, that is the story. And then if you go even deeper, this is the story that's also connected to the Anunnaki story in Sumer, right? See how it's all connected there. And here are some human hybrids of ancient Greece. So you take a look real quick. This is actually from a video game. The video game did it really well. Centaur, human serpent, human tree hybrid, Minotaur, of course. Oh yeah, we can't forget the mermaids. I'm sorry, mer people. Got to be politically correct, you know, with the mermaids. All right, then we have the Titans in Greek text that we spoke about in the beginning just a little bit. The first generation of Titans were the direct descendants of Gaia, Earth, and Uranus, Heaven, who originally gave birth to 12 Titans, 6 males and 6 females. The point is, the Titans were the second generation of deities, okay? So they were eventually overthrown by the third generation. The giants, Gigantes in Greek, were a race of immortals born from the blood which fell to earth when Kronos castrated his father, Uranus. So right here we have the same connection to the Anunnaki story, which are the fallen angels come down to earth, right? The blood of the angels came down to earth. There was Nephilim. The Nephilim's offspring were the giants. The giants had another offspring, and then they became the immortal race. And then the immortal race became the bloodline of the secret societies. And that's not saying that that's the case. I'm saying that's what they believe is the case. Okay, whether they are the connection to these beings or not doesn't matter, but they definitely believe that they are. And here's a list of giants in mythology and folklore. So there's two things that you see almost every single ancient culture is a flood story and giants. Celtic mythology, Greek, Roman, Hindus, Norse, Shinto, so much more. So in the book of Enoch, there's a list of the leaders of the 200 fallen angels, since we're on that conversation of the fallen angels right now. These are the fallen angels who allegedly commenced in unnatural union with human women. In so doing, their actions resulted in hybrid offspring, and they allegedly taught humans the forbidden knowledge. Okay, so now we have an increased awareness that these beings had when they came down to earth, and they taught humans their forbidden knowledge. Some also listed in the book of Raziel, the Zohar, and the book of Jubilees. Side note, Raziel, Archangel, Angel, Michael, Raphael, El, right? The El, Elohim. They were all offspring of the Elohim. The Elohim being the goddesses, these original beings were actually not male or female at all. These fallen angels were kind of like a hybrid of them. But then, or as time progressed, we started utilizing this term when patriarchy took over the planet, and we started dubbing all of these beings as masculine. In the Hindu text, there are accounts stating that humans grew to the size of giants during the Satya Yuga. Right? And I'm actually in a course right now in Ananda College on the deeper look into the Yuga cycles, in which there's a lot of amazing information there. And I'm going to show you briefly the cycles, the Yuga cycles. And then in Jainism, we have, according to the Jains, there was a time when giants walked upon this earth. Jain cosmology, which is an offset of it's a religion that sprouted from Vedic texts as well. So Hinduism and Jainism. Jainism did not come from Hinduism. Jainism also came from Vedic awareness. It was its own path, but they both came from Vedic scriptures. According to Jains, there was a time when giants walked upon the earth. Jain cosmology divides worldly cycle of time into two parts or half cycles. Avasar, Avasarpani, which is the age of descending purity and ascending. And that's this right here. So we have the Yuga cycles. The Yuga cycles, I'm sure a lot of you have heard because most of you probably know what ascension is. Ascension is us going to a golden age, right? And ascension isn't something that hasn't been achieved before. We've ascended many times. If you believe that we've been around for hundreds of thousands of years, then we've gone through many cycles of time where we've gone through an ascendance and a descendance, an evolution of consciousness, a devolution of consciousness. On one aspect, it connects to our position of our solar system in our galaxy, a position of our solar system, whether it's above the photon belt or below the photon belt or inside the photon belt, but also the possession of the equinoxes, the zodiac, right? It's all connected. And you can see here on this graph, which actually has dates, every ancient civilization, right? I say ancient twice because I'm talking about ancient past, talks about different ages of man, of humankind. But there's only one that actually gives dates, and that comes from India. And this is the one that gives the dates of the cycles. And you can see here, many of you have heard of the Dark Ages or Kali Yuga. You can see that's at the bottom here. Then we have the Satya Yuga, which is the Golden Age. We have the Treta Yuga, which is the Silver Age. We have the Dwapara Yuga, which is the Bronze Age. And then we have the Kali Yuga, which is the Dark Ages. Lucky for us, the lower the age, the less lengthy it is. The higher the age, the longer it is. And then you can see they go in 13,000 year cycles, right? 12,500 year cycles, basically. The Satya Yuga is back to back. So we have a long period of golden age. Now let's track where we are right now, present day, Dwapara Yuga. Many people think that we're in the Kali Yuga and that we're shifting into the next age. But the thing is, we've actually been into this next age for about 200 years. However, what occurs is at the end of every single cycle, end of every single age, there's about a 200-year transitory phase in which we shift our consciousness into the next age. So we shifted out of the Kali Yuga in 1700, and around 1900, we went into the Dwapara Yuga. A lot of times when ages shift, there's a lot of things that occur on the planet. In the lower ages, great wars occur, intense wars, right? For example, World War I, World War II. This whole century, we had a lot of wars, right? A lot of globalized wars with extreme warfare beyond anything that we could have ever done in our recent past, right? Now let's go back around 13,000 years to the Satya Yuga, right at the top of the Satya Yuga right there. This is actually also the end of the last ice age and the end of Atlantis, when there was a great flood, Noah's flood occurred, and there was an asteroid or meteorite that hit the planet and created a huge flood and cataclysm that has been documented by conventional science. It's already given, the end of the Upper Dryas period. So when this occurred, we were already in a golden age, right? So when we were in the golden age, we were on our way down, descending, but then some sort of cataclysm happened in which many of the ancient civilizations, many of our ancient scriptures and texts were actually destroyed and lost because of this cataclysm. However, humanity was still at a higher level of consciousness. At this point, a lot of the descendants of these great civilizations, including Atlantis, started going all over the planet and taking their awareness and information to all these ancient cultures. They took it to the Americas, and then also Egypt was being formed at this time. And I need to say this about Egypt. Egypt is actually not the original name. That was the name given by the Greeks. The original name is the land of Kemetic. And the way it's spelled is KMT. After vowels were introduced, it became KEMET, but KMT is the original spelling of the land of Egypt back in those days. And so the Egyptian hub was a place where a lot of this advanced awareness was stored into mystery schools, which goes into my presentation for Saturday, in which we're going to go like 30 minutes into the mystery schools of Egypt and the awareness that came out of this Yuga cycle into Egypt with Thoth, Sheshat, Ta, the mystery schools there, and all the information that was inside them and why Pythagoras was actually initiated into them. So as we fell in ages, we went down the Satya Yuga, we went to Treta Yuga. Each of these ages have a theme to it. The Kali Yuga, I'll give you two themes and tell me if you think that goes in alignment with where we've been for the last since 700 BC at least, right? The age of authority, the age in which we give up our power to authority and we forget our sovereignty, and the age of delusion, right? That is literally the theme for the age. The Dwapara Yuga is the age of energy and sovereignty, right? The age of energy and self-actualization, meaning the before it was about the group and the collective and huge armies walking across countries in order to destroy, but this is when individuality becomes more of a thing. We start realizing what we want, and almost a level of selfishness also occurs there too, while we're evolving out of this age into the higher ages, where we start realizing that we are individual sovereign beings. We get to more of a group mind and a collective understanding as we go higher in ages. But at the beginning of the Dwapara Yuga, our individuality is really a huge, huge thing that needs to be recognized and realized. The Dwapara Yuga is also the age of energy, not just the energy of spirituality, but the discovery of energy, the light bulb, quantum physics, electricity. That's what's happened 1700 AD up until this age. We get all this awareness. The Treta Yuga is when we start using telepathy again. In the middle of the Treta Yuga is when we start evolving out of the need to have language, and we're able to get spiritual practices and start communicating with each other using telepathy. As every age we ascend in, the lifespan of humanity doubles in every age. So we've been in the Kali Yuga, right? So Kali Yuga, the lifespan is around 100, 120 years, supposed to be if we didn't have so much chemicals of pollution in the air and water, right? In Dwapara Yuga, the lifespan's around 240 years, okay? And that's where we are right now. The Dwapara Yuga, around 240 years is the potential we have in our lifetimes to live. And then the Treta Yuga, we can live up to 480 years. Satya Yuga, and so on, goes even higher, right? And then you get into the story of Noah and how the story of how many hundreds of years he lived, and you go back to the Great Flood and realize that was right at the age of the Satya Yuga when people were supposed to have lived that much longer. And when the cataclysm happened on Earth, many of this evidence, many of these beings, a lot of things were, well, the pole shift occurred, and a lot of things were flash frozen, and a lot of evidence is in Antarctica. And then also there was a huge scorching fire across the planet that wiped out civilizations, buildings, evidence, fossilized beings, like all types of cataclysms happened on the planet from that collision. At the end of every age, there's usually some sort of thing that occurs. When we're going down in the ages, usually it's the cataclysm, okay? However, as prophesied by the Hopi and the Toltec and many others, is that the earth has been destroyed, has been recycled and reset, is going to be recycled and reset a total of 5 times, right? In these ages. And each one of them represents an element: earth, earthquakes, wind, storms, tornadoes, water, tsunamis, fire, asteroids, scorching fire, ether. So what's happening now is the evolution of consciousness through an etheric understanding, where we don't need to have a cataclysm because we're able to basically bring this energy down, tap into our spiritual awareness, shift the grid, and get to a point where we can ascend without having any destruction happen on the planet. There may be those who don't agree upon it and decide to live separate lives besides the life of spirituality, but that's a whole other presentation. And what will occur in this age of Dwapara Yuga, just to give one more theme to the Dwapara Yuga from the ancient text, is the age of ideological societies. So what happens in the Kali Yuga is democracy comes about, and democracy comes about because we're trying to give ourselves individual rights. But what happens in the Dwapara Yuga is democracy stops working. And the reason why democracy stops working is because people can't agree. There's no progression. We get to a point where we cancel each other out. Every 4 years, the other person cancels the other person out, and democracy stops working. So then our consciousness starts expanding. We get to an awareness where we start working on our spirituality, and we get to a place where we can make decisions based on our spirit rather than our minds, and we make collective decisions together. And that is the journey that we are now on the way to do. Okay, just a couple more slides here. So in Vedic chants, going back to DNA hybridization, that was a huge tangent. Most, if not all, of modern science is mere reinvention of the knowledge of our ancestors. Modern science is now revealing the power behind the ancient Vedic chants, the influence of these laser-sharp Sanskrit hymns on the human body and mind. The way these sacred recitals are designed to communicate with the biological internet, the DNA. Our spiritual masters have taught us for ages that our body, surroundings, and life can be mastered and programmed by speech and words. Sound frequency affects our genetic makeup. So what they're showing here is that they feel, and they are now testing and quantifying, that these Vedic chants have some sort of frequency about them that they're actually able to manipulate our DNA, which goes into an entire different, well, definitely connected, but entirely new component of the fact that using our own voice and using frequency and sound, we're also able to manipulate our DNA and unlock DNA, unlock areas of our brains that have been quote unquote dormant. A Russian experiment has proved that what was thought to be junk DNA till yesterday is actually DNA which creates biological internet. Okay, so this is, a lot of us have talked about dormant DNA, junk DNA, 12-strand DNA. Well, here's the science behind it, which of course is a wireless in nature, DNA being wireless biological internet, communicating via light and sound waves, believe it or not. That the genetic code is similar to that of the grammar of the human spoken languages. The syntax and semantics of these genes are similar to the way human languages are designed. And also that it responds to precisely focused vibrational patterns of human languages. In other words, it looks like the languages we speak actually evolved from the nature of DNA itself. You call it sound therapy or DNA therapy or whatever it takes. You can converse with your body, your genetic material via vibrations and waves, and heal ailments, fine-tune your health, control your body functions without the need of any physical intervention like surgery, medicinal drugs. Okay, they've discovered this, right? The age of energy. This is only the beginning. Pretty soon, we use our own voice to do all types of things within our own body, right? Some can already do it, but we're definitely getting to a point where we can shift our DNA, take away different genetic anomalies that are not benefiting us, you know, and so on. And this, as this one study says, genes come alive with the sound of music. Researchers translate DNA codes as music in Madrid, Spain. And let me see how long's left. Okay, 3 more slides. Genesis 1, 26 to 27. Then God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the birds of every heaven and the livestock and over all the earth and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. The Sumerian version, Ninma will bind upon it the image of the gods, it is man, which equals the two opposing views of creationism and evolution, right? So one, we have creationism, that we were created by God and it was like 6,000 years ago. And then we have evolution, that we evolved over many, many years. But actually, the truth almost always lies somewhere in between. We were evolving as a regular species, and then something happened. Darwinism has one anomaly, okay? The one anomaly is Homo erectus became Homo sapien in a matter of months. We were evolving, and that's what happens within scientific communities. If there's 1 or 2 anomalies, it's swept under the rug because people don't want to be ridiculed and lose their jobs in the community, right? That's one of the reasons. Another reason could be more nefarious, right? But this one anomaly within evolution actually changes the way we think about humanity in general. And there was some sort of thing that occurred to Homo erectus where they became Homo sapien in a very short period of time. So by the politicization and the religious suffocation, I think I made that word up, by the politicization and the religiousification of these beliefs, we are unable to see the middle ground. So we're in this world of duality and extreme opposites. Every side is on one side or the other, but it's really, the truth really is in the middle ground. And that's why I like doing what I do with PortalToAscension, because we always try to see, you know, what is the commonalities between it all. In ancient Egypt, ancient Egyptians described the watchers as the tormentors exacting great tortures upon them. Most likely they're describing the hybrid offspring who we know ravaged the earth with their unsatisfiable appetites. They defiled human man with the introduction of animals. Ultimately, the extreme numbers and perversions were removed by the gods with a great flood to purify earth once again, right? This is from their text there. whether it was a bad thing that happened on the planet, whether the gods were bad, whether humans were bad, who knows? This is just from their text. But the real thing is what I'm getting to is at the bottom line here is that they're saying that there was a global reset, that these beings, this hybridization of beings, weren't doing living the way that they should have lived. And it got reset. Humans seem to have been obsessed with hybridization and various possibilities of genetic expression since the beginning of documented scriptures and ancient texts. Some of these are most likely pure mythical creations, and some could be actual occurrences or speaking of the existence of hybrid beings that used to live on Earth. Through multiple cataclysms in our ancient past, much has been completely wiped from existence and may never be rediscovered within our linear reality. That's why we all need to understand how to tap into the Akashic records, guys. So what does it all mean? Hybridization has and is going on a level that we can quantify and speculate on just by observing the way species are created and the fact that we know humans can interbreed with each other, right? From the story of humans, not meaning Homo sapiens, meaning any hominoid. From the story of the Lyrians to the Anunnaki to Genesis and beyond, there is metaphoric and literal text that implies some sort of hybridization occurred in our past. Source wants to experience itself, right? Source creation wants to experience itself. And through that experience, hybridization has been a great way to create variation, going back to the bird story of the variation that's possible through hybridization, right? So by hybridizing two different species, the variation of experience becomes so plentiful. That's exactly what source or any representative of source in other dimensions would want. Many agendas and intentions in hybridization, both astral and physical, seem to be on the forefront of advancing consciousness and humanity. And that is it for that presentation. And before you come back on here, let's just do one poem real quick, just so that we can shift the frequency into some words and some spiritual poetry. And I think the best one to do here would probably be the fragmentation poem. Because the last thing I said there was source wants to experience itself, right? I have a poem called What If I Could Be This, right? What if I could be this? And to me, that's like source's original thought. What if? Could I be this? And through that awareness, everything that could be anything has now been put into motion to be experienced. We continue to fractalize, we continue to have diversity of experiences, and on the highest level, when there is only singularity and there is no duality, in singularity, there is no good, bad, dark, light. There's just oneness. Everything is that. You know, something I've been saying for a while now is the most unconditional thing that the light ever did is allow the darkness to live within it, right? The most unconditional thing the light ever did is allow the darkness to live within it. What does that mean? The light and the darkness aren't separate. We've only have this illusion, this computer program, almost a very organic, conscious program where we have this separation, this fractalization, and this duality in this game we're playing. But ultimately, source is just one speck of light experiencing itself infinitely. And as it experiences itself infinitely, we have this game of duality. So this poem here is about the game of duality, about the beginning, before there was duality, the singularity. And even that's a funny term to use, in the beginning, because was there ever a beginning? Is the beginning continuously happening right now? Is the beginning and end simultaneously occurring always? And then it goes into the duality of light and darkness. Fragmentation. In the beginning, there were no words, no concept, no winning, no place, no time, no description, no label, and no finishing. Until awareness became conscious of itself, separation from the source, no east, no west, no south or north. Not to mention, there never existed a dimension or ascension or physical lessons except for the 0 point. There was no Christ to anoint. Singularity, energy, frequency raised vibrationally, paradoxically into limitation of what only the 5 senses can see. No linearity, no anarchy, no galaxies, no nebulae, no jobs, no nature, no materialism, and no political lies, until darkness finally fragmented from the light, using free will to see through the night. The darkness. I take the anxiety pill, full of fright. In my bed, insecure for the conspiracy that might take over my mind, control me with a chip inside, scared and full of fear. That is the reason why we're here. To the star system of Arcturus I stare, and I recite my cosmic prayers. Self-empowered, the fabric of victim consciousness I tear. The light. The destination has already been chosen. It's the journey that counts. Every day we transcend, no doubt, living in the now, realizing it's a projection of a co-creation of our own subconscious mind, channel energy through the heart, remembrance of the divine, take apart my ego and restart my life in every moment. I'm going home, traveling across the black intergalactic ocean. I took the psychedelic potion and now I'm awoken. And now I'm awoken. To the streets we take the spoken word. Fly high, levitate the God inside, I'm free like a bird. Cosmic oneness integrating in my being, a full spectrum being, in alignment with the purity confined in ranges of frequencies inhibit what we are seeing. I shift what I choose to believe in, fuel my light body for the ether I'm feeding. Fuel my light body for the ether I'm feeding. And that's my presentation, everybody.
Wow. That
That
was
was awesome.
amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
So, Neil, where do you think we go from here? I mean, I know we've talked a lot about everything. I mean, from the beginning, and you connected the dots so beautifully, but where are we going?
We got nowhere to go but up. That's what I'm thinking.
That's true. That's true.
Like, to me, there's enough scientific evidence in regards to the way our galaxy is shifting and the solar system, and the energies of where we are, the actual places we are in the galaxy, the Yuga cycle awareness, to realize that we're on an upturn. But what happens in a place where we're going through shifting from this dualistic expression of huge density is that in order to basically be the caretakers and deserve to even be the ones that are living in peace and in Zen and all the stuff, we have a lot of traumas that we need to release, not only from this life that we're currently living in, which literally traumatized every single day sometimes from certain things that are going on, so the way that our bodies work, but we have past life traumas. And then on top of that, we don't even remember all these lives that we've been traumatized from, which we're living out in this reality, right? So to me, that's actually really beautiful, because that was what we signed up for. We signed up to have this amnesia and to figure out how to transcend these experiences by remembering who we truly are. And the people in this group here, and a lot of others on the planet and others yet to wake up are on that journey of remembrance, so that we can shift and and shift and come to terms with all of what's happened to us and work out these emotional triggers, so that we can come from a place of neutrality, not project our energy onto others, and realize that we're interconnected in one. And you don't even need to have remembrance of all your lives to shift from that. Sometimes it's as easy as exhaling out. Sometimes it's as easy as going to a sound healing event. But the reason why I'm hopelessly hopeful, that's like my term that I came up with, I'm hopelessly hopeful, is that I feel that no matter what happens, the eventual result for humanity is going to be a beautiful one. And even if you look at all the ancient texts that talk about the turmoil that's going to happen on Earth, let's just speak of one. Let's talk about Revelations, right? If you look at Revelations, for example, even in that text where it talks about the chaos coming down and the multi-headed dragon and the horsemen and all that stuff, what's the last few lines? The meek will inherit the earth. And even if you look at the ancient Krishna text about Krishna coming down, and in the text about Krishna, he's supposed to come down and chop heads off. That's like one of the original things, but that's a metaphor for something that's going to happen to us, where we're basically chopping off our egos and remembering that we're all the Christed beings, that we all have Christ consciousness within us. And that goes even into the story of Jesus, that we basically he was teaching us how to be our own messiahs. And that's what's going to happen now, is the age of the guru is over. And that was the Kali Yuga. And the age of the self-guru is the Dwarpa Yuga. And the self-guru means that we get to a vibratory frequency where we're able to tap into this awareness and get our own information and downloads, rather than having to rely on some sort of authority figure to give it to us. So that's kind of like a long answer to your question there. But I feel that no matter what, everything's going to be good.
Awesome. See, we've got Mariana that has a question for you. Go ahead, Mariana.
Neil, that was first I want to say that was one of the most deep core soul rooted presentations I've ever had to experience. It was like I went to college. It was like I went to university. But you know something, it wasn't college, it wasn't a school, it was a soul DNA remembrance. And that is what you took us to. You DNA activated, but also gave us the portal to remembering. And that is what I am grateful for. And I realized why I thought of doing and felt the guidance to do the morphogenesis workshop and the webinar, because you touched up on so many of those concepts today, because the morphogenesis process is exactly what is encapsulating our planet. But what is it? It's our returning to our divine DNA blueprint, our original source blueprint. And so I wanted to have Neil, maybe he could say a word or two about the morphogenesis process to add to his absolutely. This was the most brilliant presentation I've ever had in my life. So thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much. So are you talking about the whole metamorphosis of our DNA?
Yes.
And what that represents? Okay, yeah.
Yes.
So, when I first started getting this awareness, and even as early as 2003, 2004, I would hear people doing 12-strand DNA activations and talk about a dormant DNA, right? So it was there at first. And, even though I was completely way into just like, I believed a lot at that point because I was being open to it all, I also had a very scientific mind, and I wanted to figure out, if there was any reality to it. So I did a lot of research on DNA, and there's definitely DNA strands that are technically dormant. But then in the last couple of years, they started finding out that a lot of the DNA strands were actually activated. And as I showed in one of my slides, they were being activated through vibration and frequency and music. And they were responsible for protein synthesis to communicate with the other strands. And also that these strands were actually telepathically through frequency communicating with each other, which to me just shows that the concept of our DNA is much more intricate than we ever thought it was. And not only is that DNA activating, but that really connects to our whole brain. And how they've always said that we only use a certain percentage of our brain, right? That it's been said that we only use 10% of our brain, but around 20 years ago, that shifted to 15% of our brain. And it's not like we only use this part of our brain here. We use all of our brain. It's just not fully functioning, right? We use the left, right hemisphere, frontal lobe, and all of that stuff. So what happens when you actually do plant medicines and are in deep meditative experiences, they're able to put EEG machines, on your head and study the frequencies that are coming from your brain. And they realize that these specific frequencies, meditations, and plants are able to activate parts of your brain that are usually dormant. And people get all types of insight alongside with that. So I feel that it's pretty much a given at this point. And even though in 2 presentations, I've talked about DNA sequencing, I've only done like maybe 30 minutes altogether on it, but you could really probably dive deep into it for 3 hours and create a whole presentation on the evidence behind the fact that our DNA is much more complex than we even think it is, and has components of it that we're only now understanding, right? But to me, the smoking gun really is the vibratory aspect, because we're all vibration. What is a dimension? Like, let's be very simple here. Let's say that we have 1,000 hertz frequency, right? 0 to 100 is 1 dimension. 100 to 200 is 2 dimensions. 300 to 400 is the next dimension. Like, I'm just throwing out arbitrary numbers, right? So these frequencies, as they start affecting our body, also affect our consciousness and our DNA strands, and things start to activate on certain levels. We exist within a certain bandwidth of vibration. As we start evolving, and as we move into certain areas in our galaxy, different frequencies within our galaxy bombard our planet. This is conventional science, right? Cosmic rays hit our planet all the time. And there's even evidence from NASA of different cosmic waves that hit our planet for certain periods of time, and they've documented it, right? So as this occurs, a different frequency vibration is affecting our body. So to think that we would just continue in the normal way when it's completely that external reality is affecting us, but paradoxically, our external reality is only a manifestation of what's within us, right? So we're literally like, you're the only thing that exists, and everything outside is you is you. So you are literally manifesting the universe and the galaxy in the way that your internal world looks. But on the paradoxical level, that creates an external reality that then reflects back in you and affects you at the same time. You know, so to give you an answer, there is no answer. There's only like information, you know, on like that makes me feel that there's definitely something going on. And if somebody says to me, hey, no, we can't be, that's BS. You can't have 12 strands of DNA and there aren't dormant strands of DNA and music doesn't affect it. Now we're at a point where we can actually show studies that actually prove that that is incorrect. Hopefully that answers some of what you're asking, Mariana.
Thank you, Neil. That was absolutely phenomenal. Thank you. It answered a whole lot. I truly do agree with that. Thank you.
Okay, let's see. Barbara, I'm going to come back to you in just 1 second, if you don't mind. Susie had her hand up, and then I'll come directly to you. Okay, Miss Susie.
I've only been with the Wish Alliance for 4 or 5 months. I've been with Neil for a few years. I'm sorry, I'm crying. Whenever Neil talks, I do have to counsel everybody. Play it back at half speed, and then you can get way more out of it because there's so much. I'm just so grateful, Neil. And your poetry touches me. I hope you make that give access to your poetry and where we can purchase it or something, because I mean, you just have touched me so deeply every time you talk. But I do have to tell you, I have to play it again and take notes. And it takes me like 8 hours to get through an hour of Neil stuff. It's just so packed. Thank you, Neil.
Thanks, Susie. I really appreciate you. And thank you. Like, I've seen you, I don't even know. It's been what, 5 years now, 4 or 5 years? But
Yeah.
You've literally almost been in every single event we've done.
I can't help not. It's
I
my
know,
home.
like,
It's my home.
you're like probably one of the largest supporters of the work that we do. So I'm like, I really, 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 really appreciate you so much. And I love you. Every time I see your name in the room, it makes me smile. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Susie. Okay, Miss Barbara.
Yes, well, Neil, I am just absolutely blown away with all that you have learned and presented. It's absolutely magnificent. I'm totally amazed, and I thank you. Also, toward the end of your presentation, you were adding a word of hope. At least that's how I took it, a word of positivity. And I just want to say that there are those who are in the know, allegedly, and who say that there are extraterrestrial groups that are really trying to not just do all of our work for us, but to assist humanity in so much of the untruths and the control and so forth that's going on currently. So not only that, we're getting that help from outer space, but we're also getting it from those who are called the white hats here among humanity. So even though currently and for a long time, there's been so much control mechanism going on here and domination here on Earth, I see a big ray of hope that there are those who are working maybe not out in the limelight. You know, we certainly don't know about this in the public media, but behind the scenes, so to speak, there are these really good forces here and from space that are helping us. And of course, we've got to help ourselves. That's a big part of it. So just wanted to add that to the positive note that you gave with all of this. And again, I just thank you, Neil. You are a fantastic human being, much more than a human being, I think, included on being an incarnated human being. But you've come from a much larger sphere, I think, than just humanity. And what you bring to us, what you give to the world is really remarkable and absolutely wonderful. I thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. And if any of you don't know, Barbara was actually the headliner at my first live in-person conference in 2012. So we've been connected for quite some time, and I appreciate you and your friendship, and just like knowing you, and the fact that, we connect and you say yes to pretty much everything that I invite you to,
Right.
I
Because
really appreciate
everything you put on is so excellent.
Yeah.
That I'm really, really pleased to be part of that.
Thank you. And to add to what you said, like, I completely agree too. And there's a few things there, like, well, the quarantine, right? The quarantine, I believe, is over, that we're able to interact. I believe in the whole meet them halfway concept, that we need to shift our frequencies enough in order to be able to really be open to asking for the assistance. And also the ultimately, the darkness works for the light. The experience that we have been given here has been the experience we needed. But just like the Gnostic Christian texts talk about, the Gnosticism, the original text before 325 AD, when Constantine changed the scriptures, Lucifer and the devil and all the energy that came from it was actually a volunteer program. It was a program they were volunteer to give us the experience of darkness. But in the end of the Gnostic text, it said that when God said to Lucifer, when I come to earth, you need to willingly give me the keys. And he agreed, right? So, and that's, to me, is God, extraterrestrials, Messiah within, whatever you want to call it, is literally at a point where that the game, the chapter, the level is over, and now they need to give up the keys back to this ascension process. And that connects to me with the whole cycles of time. Like, these beings know about the cycles. Like, that one game, that one chapter is over, and we're going to the next one. So I agree with you 100% that we have a lot of guides and assistants here. And the more we spread this information with people, the more people understand it and be open to it, right?
Yeah.
And the more we're open to it, the more help we get. So it's like that feedback mechanism.
Good.
I'd like to add to everyone, while I've got Neil and Barbara both here, I want to thank both of them for being, along with myself, founding members of WISH. So thank you guys so much for all your hard work, and I really appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate you, Sheila. Woohoo.
Thanks. Let's see, Stone, I think you had your hand raised a moment ago as well.
Thank you, Sheila, for that. And thank you, Neil, for a fantastic presentation. We are our own tuning forks, we have to appreciate ourselves and say thank you to ourselves every single day for being here. It's absolutely amazing. And you hit on so many areas. So keeping it short, thank you again for sharing. Much appreciated for your journey.
Thank you, Stone.
Beautiful. Okay, do we have any final questions for Neil? Now is your time. Ross.
Yes. Hi. Hello, Sheila. Thank you. Thank you very much for organizing the weekend event. It was really awesome. I mean, such a value-driven, educational, really event. It's amazing. It was amazing. And Neil, you're awesome. You rock. That's all I can say. It's
thank you, brother.
It's really quality education and presentation, and you really it shows. You put a lot of work, a lot of research. I'm big on research, and I do research some other things from my profession. So yes, it takes a lot of work, and so yeah, It's really quality. So yeah, thank you very much for that. My question is kind of a little bit sideways here. So you live in Mexico?
Yeah, I just moved down here. I'm probably going to live here 4 to 5 months out of the year.
Where in Mexico?
Right now I'm in Playa del Carmen in the Yucatan Peninsula.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a change. Why did you move?
Very low restrictions, a lot of open people, many huggers, and amazing vegan food, right? Like I can literally walk 10 minutes in any direction and I'll have 6 vegan restaurants. And the restaurants that don't have vegan food will have a vegan menu. And there's like a huge conscious spiritual like community here. I went to an open mic. I've been performing weekly at an open mic. I'm going to do my album release party here in 2 months, hip hop release party. And I went to an open mic and everybody there was into vibration, frequency, and consciousness. How do you get that randomly at an open mic, right? So plus the real main reason I'm here is because I'm really into the Maya, and this is like central hub for all Maya discoveries, and a part-time job for PortalToAscension is mini documentaries on ancient civilizations and sites. So I'm doing a lot of filming on ancient sites and going to put it up on our YouTube channel.
Wow, that is really awesome because also, do you know James Twyman? He's in Mexico. He now lives in Mexico.
Sounds familiar. No, I don't know.
Yeah, James Twyman. Max Egan, the guy from Down Under.
Okay.
He moved to Mexico for reason of restrictions and stuff. So Jeff Berwick is there too, and so it's very interesting. A lot of people somehow moving for whatever reasons because
that's what's happening, man. It's nomadic lifestyle. People are needing to go where they need to go. I'm meeting a lot of people here that lost their jobs because of all the restrictions, and a week before they came here, they didn't even know where they're going to go. One of my great friends that I just met a couple months ago, we become like best friends. She was in Lithuania and she lost her job because of restrictions. And then 1 week later, she was in Mexico. She had no idea she was going to be here. So I'm meeting a lot of nomads, and I'm having a huge lesson of living in the moment because plans change like 20 times a day. And I can't plan for anything for tomorrow. Things are always shifting and changing. So I'm kind of embracing it. Plus, I just went through a divorce 3 months ago. And
sorry to hear that.
Thanks. And then, so I came here 1 week after the divorce. And I'm doing a lot of healing here, and just figuring out what it is to live for myself, because I lived for someone else for 10 years. And then before that, I lived for my parents because I was a 28-year-old Indian kid trying to live up to his parents' expectations, So it's like a huge shift in my life right now.
Yeah. Well,
I feel good about it.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you very much for sharing. And I'm really surprised that, my knowledge of Mexico, it's not so great, but having all these vegan restaurants, geez, that's surprising.
There's a reason why they tell you it's not so great. And that I'd probably have to do a presentation just on that.
I think so. You should. I'm serious, to educate us, us gringos really, that is not that bad, scary or whatever.
Yeah, it's not as bad. I mean, Detroit is way worse than this city for sure.
Yes, that I know. Yes.
You also have wonderful weather there.
Oh yeah, I forgot I mentioned that. Yeah.
That's a great bonus. Well, yeah, thank you, Neil. Appreciate it.
70 to 90 degrees. We're in Playa del Carmen. 70 to 90 degrees all year round.
Perfect.
Wow.
Can go wrong.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, bro.
Thank you, Ross. Thank you. Hi, Carol. Carol has a question for you.
Okay. Hi, Sheila. Okay. Thank you for doing all this. And also thank you for forwarding last week's show to me. Actually, I forwarded it to our group as well. What a coincidence that we're both doing the knowledge book at the same time. Okay, Neil. Okay. I've been to college and university, and I think you should have an honorary degree for doing this. I can't imagine how this would go down. The conventional universities, right? But eventually it will, right? Yeah. Excellent. You could teach me a lot. I mean, I've done some presentations on Wish Alliance, but you could certainly teach me a lot about doing presentations. Excellent. Top of the line. But And years ago, I went to Cancun, and I think they torn down part of the jungle and made an airport. You know, and yeah, I don't, you know, I'm not sure whether I agree with that about the environment, but yeah, Cancun at the time, everybody had a job. All the Mexicans had a job in Cancun at the time. Yeah, so it was a great time, good memories.
Yeah, Cancun, I can't really do Cancun. It's just too exploited at this point.
Is it? Yeah.
But actually, the whole of this peninsula is so exploited, and part of my reason here is I'm actually going to start a movement to help the community and stuff, because they're actually 80% of all the waste in Playa del Carmen and Tulum gets put into the underground rivers and the cenotes.
Oh my God.
Literally, like in 15 years from now, this place is not going to be inhabitable. So, and the businesses, basically the Mexican government doesn't care because they're just making so much money off this place. So they, the plumbing and everything is based on building contractor. There is no standardized plumbing. So a lot of times they're just dumping your waste right into, because Yucatan has the biggest underground fresh lake and riverbeds in the entire planet, right? That came from the asteroid that destroyed the dinosaurs 65 million years ago, right? And basically there's something called the mangrove that gets rid of all the waste and everything, but they're getting rid of the mangrove, and now all the waste is going directly into the cenotes, and it's pretty much going to destroy this whole environment. There's this huge landfill in the middle of the jungle, right? It looks beautiful. You won't even notice it. It's hidden very well. So there's this documentary called The Dark Side of Tulum, if anybody wants to watch it. And I'm going to start connecting with local businesses, and I'm trying to get local businesses to donate a certain amount of money, like very little, maybe like $5 a month, in order to create some sort of agency that is responsible directly for making sure this waste doesn't get into the water, things like that. I have a huge connection to this peninsula because I was definitely a Maya in multiple past lives. Like when I first came to the Yucatan, I wanted to kiss the ground. Like when I go to ancient sites over here, I literally just sit on a pyramid for hours. Like it's the most connected I've ever felt. So I feel like part of my mission is to help this place.
Because when I was there, I think I remember the artesian well. And then when we went to Tulum, we were told don't put sunscreen on or sun lotion on.
Yeah.
Because when you go diving, you could just could kill the fish.
Yeah,
they were that careful back then. I'm shocked to hear about it. Shocked.
Yeah, they still say that for the cenotes and everything, but no one really knows that 80% of all the waste is going down there. It's just a lack of awareness. So a lot of people come down here for spiritual awakening and everything, but they don't do the extra research. And as you can tell, I'm a huge researcher, so I like to know everything about where I'm at. And just because I know everything where I'm at, I even know how they dispose of their waste. But most people don't realize that. So it's just people need to be aware of it. Normally just very large corporations come here and they just want to make money, and it's the bottom line for them. It's like they don't want to create a plumbing system. They just want to dump their waste in the water so that they can basically make as much money as they want.
Gosh. Right. Yeah. I'm in a company now called On Passive, and we're going to launch pretty soon, and we're sharing the profits, so I can send some cash down your way, Neil.
Yeah, it's probably going to be like 6 months or so. I'll probably start the process of that, and I'll let everybody know.
It's perfect, right? But the presentation, I've never seen it pulled together. You really pulled it together. I've seen it separate, the Anunnaki, and then, but you've really pulled all the belief systems together in one place. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you. And then we have Bridget, who has her hand up and a question. Hi, Bridget. Can you unmute? Oh, I know she was having some connection problems.
She's unmuted.
Okay. Hi, Bridget.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can now. Thanks.
I don't know.
There we go.
We can't hear you. Yeah, Bridget's been having some odd internet issues tonight as well. She's doing a great job helping to cast this presentation out over Clubhouse. So thank you so much for
Oh,
that.
nice.
Yeah, she's been doing that for us every Thursday. Bridget. Yeah.
We'll see if she comes back.
Yeah, okay. Does anyone else have a question? Kind of winding things down.
Before
Bridget,
we
are
close
you
out,
back?
I want to show the presentation for this weekend if anybody wants to join
Sure.
in.
Okay. If you want to go ahead and show the presentation, then maybe Bridget will
Right.
be able to join us after.
Yes, 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 yes.
I just wanted to say really, really quick, Neil, before you pop that on, how amazing. Oh, did you get your sound back, Bridget?
No, go ahead. I don't think she's
I
ready
just
yet.
wanted to say how amazing your presentation was. It's like you have done all the page turning and research throughout our history and brought it all together. And it was an amazing experience, not to be forgotten. And I feel I'm having this really strong feeling to give you this message because I feel it's very important. And I feel that you're going to have a massive impact there where you are, and you are meant to be there. I really feel you're going to have such an amazing and massive impact there. And I just want to thank you already because your presence there, your everything that you're carrying, the energies, the information of our history, all of that is helping to put into motion the change already, just you being there. And I think it's going to be something very significant. And I want to thank you now. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I receive. Thank you so much. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share this. All right, everybody. So this weekend, I am doing on Saturday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, The Truth, the Life, and Times of Pythagoras. It's probably one of my most fun presentations I've ever put together, and revolutionary and impactful. Like, it's just so amazing, all the awareness that I found. We're going to talk about Pythagoras' past lives, who he was, why he chose to have basically a vegan / vegetarian lifestyle, how he found all this information. But the most interesting part will be going through the Babylonian text, going through the Egyptian text, looking at the mathematics of the structure of the pyramids on the Giza Plateau, and realizing that a lot of this information and awareness that he got was from ancient civilizations that even connected back even further than Egypt. Much of it could have come from ancient Atlantis. But I'm just going to read here a little bit of the description so you guys kind of know what we're going to talk about, but also definitely about the times of Greece, like what was happening back then, what happened in the 6th century in Greece, what happened in the 5th century, what were the days and times look like for Pythagoras. And here I'll give you a little bit of a sneak preview of what's good, some information, right? Pythagoras was born on Samos, Samos, which is an island that was a Greek city-state off the coast of Anatolia, which is modern-day Turkey. Lots of influence from the Persian Empire and from Babylonian scriptures, because Eastern Greece had a lot of connection and information that came from Babylon because of the fact of the proximity. He escaped the tyrant's rule and went into self-exile on the island of Croton, which is an island in Italy. He then, after his university, some things happened, I won't tell you exactly what. After he left, he went to 2 other places in Italy. Why is it that Pythagoras' information was hijacked by the Masonic order and then the Illuminati and then Constantine and the Roman Empire? Is because he literally went to Italy and escaped Samos and had all of his information shared amongst Italy. So when the Vatican came about, the Vatican literally hijacked all the information that had been shared and spread throughout Italy and started utilizing it as their own, creating the building blocks and the harmonic frequencies and all the numerology that they currently use in the Masonic order and secret societies. in order for them to basically exert control over the world. They got all this information from Pythagoras. And so we're going to be going into a lot of this, how the Western numerological scale came about, and much, much, much more. Again, if you're interested, go to PortalToAscension.org, click online events. Show you how to do it real quick. And then it's just the first event right there. And as always, with all our presentations, you get unlimited replay access. And it's going to be fun. So if you're into ancient history and you're also into realizing how we became who we are today and why Pythagoras is such an important figure, then we'll go ahead and join that presentation. But also the fact that Pythagoras gets a lot of credit for things that he really didn't even find. So we're going to be giving a lot of reverence to the ancient civilizations in which he got it from, and demystify Pythagoras and really give credit where it's deserved in the ancient texts. So that's it for me.
All right. Bridget, are you connected that you could speak now? I don't think so. Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Okay. So she wants to tell Neil that his presentation aligns with so much information that her soul team has brought through over the years. And she looks forward to being able to chat and geek out on everything. So awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Bridget. And Neil, thank you so much for such a thought-provoking, mind-expanding presentation. And I know I, for one, am going to watch this over and over again just to be able to absorb and digest all this deep and juicy information. So thank you all tonight for attending. I really appreciate it. I'm going to take you to gallery view now. So I really appreciate everyone attending. We will be back here next week at the same time on Monday. We also have the Conscious Awakening series where we'll have Stephanie Lodge coming, and she will be talking to us. And then next week, we have Dr. Richard Horowitz, who will be talking with us about his new book that's, I guess it's getting ready to be released, but it's called The Starseed Evolution / Revolution. So if you haven't seen his video, he's going to share that. It's absolutely hilarious. So, plan on bringing a cup of tea and having a good afternoon, because he's very comical. So thank you all so much for coming. And from my heart to yours, namaste. Have a beautiful week, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank you
everybody.
so much. Good night.
Thank you, Neil.
Bye.
Thank you, Sheila.
Bye.
Good night.
Much love.
Hey. Hey, Phil.
Hey, Phil.
Hey, Carol. Hello, everyone.
How's Willow? I always try
Oh
to.
my gosh.
Is he there? He's there.
Yes, look at,
Oh.
you can't see, but yes, he is right here healing up,
Good.
doing beautifully. So thank you so much.
All
You're
right.
welcome, my
Okay,
dear.
everyone.
Thanks,
Thanks
Sheila.
so much.
It was wonderful.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.